One of the reasons why Democrats are so afraid right now is you have people like Zachary Levi, who's a really well-spoken Hollywood actor, coming out and supporting Donald Trump and saying that there's going to be a lot of quiet Trump voters that haven't necessarily been outspoken, but still are going to go out and show up for him. This is what Zachary Levi said about that. Take a look.
Do you think, Zachary, there are a lot more stars in Hollywood who are now leaning towards voting Trump than would actually admit it?
Well, certainly. Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I think there are a lot of people in the same way that you see a lot of newspapers right now essentially kind of sitting out. Newspapers that traditionally would say, we are endorsing this candidate. And by the way, I mean, almost without fail, all of these newspapers have endorsed the Democratic candidate. The fact that they are sitting out is very indicative of a lot of liberals, a lot of Democrats are not impressed with Kamala. She's now saying, well, we want to go and do the things that essentially Donald Trump was already doing and that they were vilifying him for. I mean, that to me is very telling of a candidate that you have a hard time wanting to cast a vote for. And I do think there's a lot of people in Hollywood that would love to vote for a Democratic candidate because they really don't like Trump. And I get it. I totally understand. There are a lot of people that are voting for Trump that don't think he's the greatest guy in the world. But this is not, we're not looking for a spouse. We're not hiring somebody that we're working with day to day. We're looking for someone who has the chutzpah to be able to go and stand against the Putins and the Xi Jinpings and everyone else on an international level, and also have the balls to, go and make some decisions. And I think that in his 4 years that we saw, that, by the way, a lot of people said it's going to be the end of the world. They were saying he was Hitler then, and it's all going to fall apart, and it didn't. It actually wasn't such a bad 4 years. And the last 4 years with Kamala and with Biden, I would argue, have not been nearly as good. And I think a lot of people see that. And so they might be, holding their nose while they vote for Trump. But I do believe that there will be a lot of people that will vote for Donald Trump because they see that, again, they're not just voting for Donald. They're voting for that entire unity party. And that is important.
Yeah, so that unity party that Zachary Levi is talking about is the reason why so many Democrats and independents have switched to Republicans recently. It's because of Trump's willingness. This is one of my favorite things about Donald Trump. It is his willingness to bring outsiders into the Republican Party and essentially become the party of acceptance, because there's no doubt that there was this perception in maybe the early 2000s and maybe even beyond that the Democrats were the party of acceptance. They would take everyone. What you see from Donald Trump right now is that he's going to McDonald's to work. He's going to work at a trash truck. And if you look, by the way, it's actually really disgusting. If you look online on the critiques of Donald Trump for doing those things, people will literally be saying things like, wow, I can't believe we tricked Donald Trump into doing a McDonald's thing or a garbage truck thing. And it's like, they're missing the whole point. Donald Trump doesn't look down on those workers the way that the Democrats do. And you can very clearly see it if you just look at not just the Democrat elite, but a lot of just kind of normal Democrats, the way that they look down on what Donald Trump is doing, not realizing that those people actually feel very accepted by what Donald Trump has done. And then, of course, including all of that amazing cadre of, not just politicians. I mean, you've got Elon Musk. You've got, people like Zachary Levi who are supporting him in a way that just would have been unthinkable for Republicans 10 or 20 years ago. So Zachary Levi talks about how more Hollywood actors will vote for Trump than we know about. And I find that interesting, but I think that is true pretty much across the board for all demographics. In both of Trump's elections before this, people have turned out for Trump in numbers way higher than the polling suggested. And everyone knows that. But the question for this election is that going to happen again? And I've talked about how I think that there have been some permission structure changes where people, because of just how disastrous this administration has been with Biden and Harris, the permission structures have changed where people can be a little bit more vocal about supporting Trump. Because now and Zachary Levi kind of lays it out in that video, it's not so much that you have to love Trump, though there are a lot of people that do love Trump. It's that you just have to not like what's happened in the last 4 years in our country, because it is a binary choice between Harris or Trump. And I think Zachary Levi points out really well that there are some new permission structures that have opened up where it's just not as hard to say that you support Trump as before. Because of that, I don't think the polling is as off as it has been in the past, but I still think that there is a massive group of people that will quietly vote for Trump. And if people knew who those people were, they'd be very shocked, like lifelong Democrats who are just fed up with the awful economy and foreign policy and immigration policy. I think we would all be shocked to see some of our neighbors who we might think are more left leaning that are going to vote for Trump. And the permission structures, I think, again, they're there for more people to come out in open support, but they're not quite there. And the reason why is because Democrats obviously are just so brutal. I mean, you literally have Biden coming out and calling anyone who supports Trump trash. And so, I mean, for those who aren't super politically active but still vote, it might not be enough for them to, openly come out and support Trump. Regardless, though, I think they're going to vote for him. That's why I look at the polls and I think even if they're a little less biased than they were before, I think Trump is way ahead of Kamala Harris. I just do, because you look and they're pretty much neck and neck in the polling. And so if there's any discrepancy with a quiet vote, which I think there is, then it's a Donald Trump victory. I think turnout as well for Trump will be historically good. The early voting is already showing that. I think turnout, conversely, for Kamala Harris is going to be pretty lackluster. Well, guys, I recently came out with my new book, A New Cult. It's up on the shelf right up there. You can see it. A New Cult talks about how the left has literally devolved into a cult, and it kind of goes into what that all entails, from George Soros to Jeffrey Epstein. I had a really good time reading it. It's on Amazon right now just for $9.99, or if you have a Kindle subscription, it's free to use. So go check it out today. The link is in the description below.